Hello, Vanessa. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Where are you, Vanessa? It looks beautiful wherever you are. I am in Holland in a place called Heerenveen. It's in the north of Holland. I am here in the studios of Chessable, and I am creating Chessable courses from a series of books I wrote called the Winning Chess Series. And we have just completed and released the fourth book in the series, Winning Chess Brilliancies. And I'm really proud and happy that we got the book completed. Yeah, the Winning Chess Brilliancies. And I'd like to tell a few stories, if you don't mind, as we wait for some questions from our audience. Stories I have is people think about the chess brilliancy for a moment and they see the game and it was great, it was great, a nice applause, very nice, the winner wins the game, but they don't really understand so much the story behind the brilliancy. So for example, in America we had a really great grandmaster. His name was Frank Marshall, and he was known as a great attacking player, and he had played a match against Jose Raul Capablanca at a time when nobody knew who Capablanca was. And Marshall was the big favorite. He was going to crush this young upstart from Havana, Cuba. And instead, Capablanca crushed Marshall in the match. And in many ways, this destroyed Marshall's career, or at least his thought that he was going to be world champion one day. So he was thinking about his revenge. And Marshall, before he went to sleep, would always have on his bedside a paper and a pen. Because as Marshall said, you never know when a great idea may occur to you. So he claims, myth, that the Marshall Gambit, the idea for the Marshall Gambit, came to him in a dream. He woke up and he wrote it down. He spent years perfecting the Marshall Gambit in the Ruy Lopez, and he wanted to spring it on Capablanca and get his revenge. So years of planning, and it was perfect, perfectly timed. He got to play Capablanca with the black pieces. Kappa went directly into his variation. Bang. He played his Marshall Gambit, his novelty, which was to take the chess world by storm for the next 100 years. And Capablanca played a nearly perfect, a flawless game and refuted Marshall's Gambit at the board. How terrible. He had worked so hard and Capablanca played perfectly. So this is the idea behind a brilliancy. And once I was in Mar del Plata, Argentina. I was playing in a tournament there in the early 1980s. And it was a tournament featuring Anatoly Karpov, Lev Polygaevsky, Bent Larson, all of these great legends, including the world champion. And it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm a late sleeper. I was reading a book, and there's a knock on my door. It's like, what the heck? It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and knock on the door. I open up the door, and there's the legend himself, Mr. Miguel Najdorf. And he says to me, Jasser, I feel great. I feel great. I'm inspired. Let's play chess. I'm sure I will make a brilliancy. I said, I said, come on, guy. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm in my PJs. I'm going to bed. Go find another victim. So in chess, you need everything to kind of line up, like the stars have to all be in a row. You have to feel it yourself that you're ready to play the game of your life, to play a brilliancy. And it also comes with this preparation, this knowledge, this hard work as you spring a surprise on your opponent. And then you are inspired to play a great game. And so for me, a brilliancy is precisely that, where you have two players, the winner and sadly to say, also the loser who are playing inspired. Sure. Mhm. Yes. Well, um, it first of all, it's a kind of a difficult word, heroes, because heroes can also be people who have passed away, right? So there was people I really, really admired a lot. So I like to include those people. And those people who I admired a lot are not necessarily great giants of chess, right? But I had a circle of friends who I admired a lot, and players like Victor Pooples from Seattle. He was many times the champion of Washington State, and it was such an honor to play with Victor Pooples. And in the circle of the Northwest, there was Grandmaster Peter Viasis, who beat me like a drum when I was young. And what a pleasure it was to play against a grandmaster. And there were so many strong players in the Pacific Northwest that those were my heroes and people I admire. But really, what really stands out for me in my career is when I got a chance to play against the world champions, Vasily Smyslov, Michael Tal, Anatoly Karpov, Gary Kasparov. I got a chance to meet Fischer and to analyze with him. And I wrote a book about it, No Regrets. And this, for me, these were really, really what Boris Spassky would say to me, Yasser, it's your time in the sun. And I felt it. I felt that when I was playing against these world champions, it was like I was a gunslinger in the West. And suddenly I had to have a very fast draw. And I felt that somehow I was being pulled up, that they inspired me. And some of my best games were played against, well, Karpov, Spassky, Fischer, Michael Tal. I played with Michael Tal 5 times, and I scored 4 wins and 1 draw. And against Michael Tal, the first time we played, it was really a very strange moment. It was an Olympiad where it was my first Olympiad, where it was USA versus USSR, a country that doesn't exist anymore. And can you imagine that their second reserve player was Gary Kasparov? It was like the greatest player of all time was their second reserve. The Soviet Union was winning the match pretty well. And Tal had a better position against me, and he offered a draw. So one of the rules in this match was that any draw offers, I had to go tell my team captain, Pal Benko. So Pal was looking very remorse. We had lost the match 2.5 already. We were down 2.5 half, and my game was remaining. And I go to him and I say, Pal, uh, Misha, he offered me a draw. And he looked really happy because he saw that I stood worse. He was afraid that we were going to lose very badly. And I said, well, what should I do? And he said, well, it's your decision. There's nothing for the team captain to say. I said, okay. So I go back And Tall stood up to offer me his hand, and I said, "I'd like to play." And he looked completely exasperated with very, very large eyes. But it was just, I knew I was worse. But it was just one of those positions that I really enjoy playing as white. And I played it really well. He got into time trouble and made some mistakes and managed to win the game in an adjournment. And it was a very powerful moment in my career. These moments inspired me and made me want to do better and better and to become a professional chess player. Yes, absolutely. 1980, Malta was the first Olympiad I ever went to, and it was Valletta, the capital city of Malta, that hosted the Congress. The problem with Malta and for the Olympiad, and for that matter, any people who host the Olympiad, the problem was hotel rooms. Simply put, there were thousands of participants in the men's and the women's sections, as well as FIDE delegates, coaches, and simply tourists. In fact, the hotel that we wanted to stay at, we couldn't stay at because they were just simply booked up by the tourists. So what happened is the Maltese Olympiad, they rented apartment blocks, and we were put in an apartment block um, that was quite far from the tournament hall, and we would have to take these vans or buses to go to the playing hall. And I remember, and then in this case, of course, we had to do our own linen, our own laundry, and stuff like this. And chess players aren't necessarily very good at this. And I remember it was really, really bad because, well, there's not a how do you say, a doorman or a receptionist to take your messages or phone calls or stuff. And again, this is not during the internet era, but my roommate, um, Larry Christensen, he pounded on the door. He said, yes, sir, wake up. We play the Soviets today. And I was like, oh man, the Soviets, because each night before we go to sleep, we were imagining when will we play the Soviets? We knew it was going to happen, but it happened exactly at the moment we were sure it wasn't going to happen. And I go, oh man. And he goes, you're white with Lev Polygaevsky. I said, oh, Polygaevsky, what do I know about Palu? And we had brought these stacks of chess informants. We didn't have databases. We carried around these incredibly heavy books. It's like everybody on the Olympiad team had to carry, I don't care, 5 copies of these informants. So I spent the entire afternoon or morning going through the chess informant books, came to the playing hall, and there was Michael Tall, my opponent. And as I sat down to think about what I was going to play against Michael Tall, I was first thinking, how am I going to kill Larry Christensen for giving me the wrong opponent? The Maltese organizers were fantastic. They really did their very best to make the players feel well, but there was a problem. The weather sucked. I don't know what happened that particular period of time. And it was like everybody got a cough. And when you're at an Olympiad, it's almost like a kind of a pandemic. Once you're in an Olympiad, somebody gets a cold, they're going to give it to somebody who's going to give it to 4 others, who's going to give it to 8 others. And it was really funny. It was my friend Michael Steen of the British team was laughing because in the final round, we played against one another, and it sounded like we were in a hospital ward because everybody was sneezing and coughing, and everybody wanted to get out. It was a very strange, surreal experience at the very, very end. I ended up doing really well. My first Olympiad, I was board two, board two, and I got a silver medal, a silver medal on board two. So it was a very nice experience. Thank you. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Okay. So the first thing, whenever you're doing coaching or chess teaching, is you must take the Hippocratic Oath. And the Hippocratic Oath is do no harm. So, what I mean by this is when you have a young student, they obviously already have a passion for chess. There's something there. They're there for a reason. They want to learn. So, what you want to do is understand the strengths of your student. You don't want to give them the most difficult problems under the sun so that their heads are pounding and they don't get the answer and they're very upset with you. Rather, you want to push them to in a very, very gentle and coaxing way, encourage them. So give them problems that they can solve that will bring a very big smile to their face and to gently inspire them. And again, you don't want to make it a punishment, right? And for me, one of the greatest pleasures as a chess teacher, and I've done chess camps all over the world, is to play Bug House. That is, you play chess with a partner. And for the kids, it's marvelous. They just love it. And if I just let them play Bug House all day, they would say, Mommy, Yasser's the greatest chess coach ever. So I know how to make the kids happy. And again, I take the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm, and just inspire them to greater successes. Sammy Roshevsky? Roshevsky, yeah. Oh, definitely. First of all, Sammy Roshevsky was a giant in American chess. He was a really big legend. And at one time, Sammy was considered to be the best player in the world, although he wasn't world champion. Certainly for a decade or so, he was in the world's top five players. One of the things that I find really ironic about chess is that people who play chess tend to think of chess as being 1,000 years old and that the rules are set and they haven't changed in hundreds and hundreds of years. They're wrong. They're wrong. Rules of chess change all the time. And if you look at the rule book of chess, and if you compared it to a rule book of 1950 to 1960 to 1970 to 1980, you'll be shocked by how many times the rules of chess have changed. So at one time, the rules of chess were that if you and your opponent were in time trouble and the flag fell, it was the responsibility of the player to call the flag. The arbiter was not allowed to call the flag. And there should be, quote, this is very important, no outside interference. No outside interference. Today, the arbiter stops the clock and says, "You're down. I saw your flag fall." So the arbiter interferes today. But in those days, in that moment, the rule was no outside interference. And there was Sammy on stage at a US Open, very, very important, big tournament that takes place in the United States. And he's on stage, and 200 people are watching this incredible game as both Sammy and his opponent were blitzing because they were in time trouble. And suddenly, in this packed hall, in the front row, jumped up Roshevsky's wife and shouted at the top of her lungs, "Flag, flag, flag." And Sammy looked over and said, "You're down, I win." And stopped the clock. Everybody was shocked by the reaction. And the opponent was so shocked. He said, "Outside interference, you cheated." So there was a big committee, appeals committee, as the opponent said Sammy got outside interference, and the appeals committee agreed with Sammy's opponent. Yes, outside interference. The game must continue. No, no, said Sammy. I have won the game. I won. There was no outside interference. And the chairman of the appeals committee said, "I'm sorry, Sammy, but we got 200 witnesses that heard your wife shouting." And Sammy said, "No, no, no, no. According to Talmudic law, my wife and I are one flesh. There was no interference. Sammy won the game. They were one flesh." There are many, many, many Reshevsky stories. Not all are as wonderful as that or as impactful as that, but Reshevsky was quite the character, I can tell you. Well, I must say that I had so many moments, turning point moments. I would say the first of many was in 1979. I was playing in the World Junior Championship. And what had happened is I had graduated the high school and I was going to go to the University of Washington to go to med school because I wanted to be a medical doctor. That was my whole ambition in life was I thought to be a medical doctor was the highest thing I could aspire to. I could be of service to people and save lives. I thought, okay, that's what I'm about. I want to do that. So I taken a year off of school because I graduated a year early, right? And I played in the World Junior Championship and I won the darn thing. I became the gold medal winner for the World Junior Championship. And so this kind of encouraged me. It was a turning point to take another year sabbatical away from school and to see what I could do with chess. Um, Today, if you win the World Junior Championship, they give you the Grandmaster title. It's not even a norm. You just get the Grandmaster title. I didn't even get the Grandmaster norm for winning the World Junior Championship, but I got a very nice invitation to come to Holland to play in the Vikonsay tournament. And this was really a second very big turning point. And I needed, I don't know if I remember it so well, I needed, let us just say, 8 points out of 13 to get the Grandmaster norm. And I got it with like 3 rounds to spare. My final score was like 10 and a half from 13. I won the tournament with Walter Brown. And after I had beaten Grandmaster Sigurd Jonsson from Iceland, the organizers got on the microphone and said, "Hello, everybody. Please stop your clock, stop your clock." And they brought out onto the stage magnums of champagne on silver trays with champagne goblets. And there was Viktor Lvovich, Victor the Beast, the terrible beast. He's number 2 player in the world playing his game. And the clock had been stopped in the middle of the game. And right in the middle of the game, all of these grandmasters, from Victor to Jan Timman to many others, stopped and had a toast of champagne on the stage as I became a grandmaster. And that was a very uplifting and critical moment. So there was many moments early in the career that inspired me to go on, and then I had other moments where I just had, this was terrible. Being a candidate for the world championship, losing a game that I should have won. Oh, real blow. So I've had my ups and my downs, but at the end of the day, I became a professional chess grandmaster. I didn't go to the medical school. In the Sicilian, oh my goodness, in the, my goodness, in the Sicilian defense, that's the problem with the Sicilian. You don't keep it simple. When you play the Sicilian for either white or for black, it's like riding a tiger. It's you don't want to get bucked off. The tiger will eat you. And I always feel that when I'm playing a Sicilian, either for either side, that it's going to be sharp. So if you're playing the Sicilian for calm, controlled chess, you're in the wrong swimming pool. I would say change openings, play some classical king pawn defense, take it easy, relax. Sicilian is hot blooded. Mhm. Ray. Well, I played Gary many games, and a couple. I could tons of stories, just like snap. Gary was kind of younger brother for me, and I was really anxious to take care of him, especially when he came to the West because of the Soviet America Cold War rivalry. I wanted him to be comfortable. Um, and I remember it was, let's say, I want to say 2000. There was the Russia versus the rest of the world match that took place in Moscow. And I had gone to his flat in Moscow, um, and we were playing Blitz. And we wanted the first to win 5.5 points would win the match kind of thing. So it was very competitive affair. And I was in a rook and pawn ending, and I had a king and 2 pawns and a rook against Gary's king, rook, and 1 pawn. So, first of all, I'm a pawn up, but much more importantly, Vanessa, Gary had less time. And I'm talking like 40 seconds less time. So, I'm going to either win the game on the board or on the time. And Gary shouts, draw, and stops the clock. I'm like, no, dude, I want to win. But he gets up from the board, he turns around, we're in his study, and he pulls off of the bookshelf a book in Russian. And it was a thick Rook and Pawn endgame book. And it was like, bang, he turned immediately to the page, like as if he had memorized the page and the position. And he says, "See, draw." And in the book, it was the identical position on the board as our game. Vanessa, I was so impressed. I said, "Okay, you deserve the draw, even though I was going to beat you on the clock, you lucky guy." And this idea that he would know the position, the very book, and where in the book. I mean, if he had sat there and spent, 20 minutes trying to find where the page was, I would say, "No way, guy, let's continue." But he found it immediately. Vanessa, I was so impressed. I said, "Okay, draw, good enough." That's one story. And I have tons of more stories about Gary Kasparov. He was, to my mind, Gary was the greatest chess player the world has ever seen. Mm. My least favorite or my least favorite? Ooh, I want to say I don't have a least favorite per se. I just have positions that I really don't like. I hate like a king's gambit, some really crazy, messed up position like a museo gambit in a king's gambit, where it's that there's no real rhyme or reason to the position. It's just cold calculation. You just have to know calculations. So, uh, yeah, those types of positions uh, I'm not really attracted to. Vanessa, just give me a quick second. Yes, I. They can't hear Vanessa on the street. They just hear it. So you might want to change that. So, Vanessa, I'm just getting my producer, Stein, says that the audience doesn't hear you on the screen. Ah, okay. That so it's deliberate then that they don't hear. I'll repeat the questions then so that the audience knows what I'm being asked. Okay. No, no problem. So the question you're asking is, what is my favorite story about Bobby Fischer? And again, this is one of those that instantly, when you ask this question, I 20, 30 stories come to my mind. Okay, but this one really, really is funny. So Bobby, it was like 19, I'm going to say 78 or so. Bobby had been the world champion, but he had been forfeited. His title had gone to Anatoly Karpov, and nobody knew what Bobby Fischer was doing. So, um, from the Königs Club, I remember his name. It was a German industrialist who had created a chess club here in Holland. Pagel. Arnfried Pagel had created the King's Club here in Holland, and he wanted Bobby Fischer to play one game for the Königs Club. And he went to Pasadena and he paid like Bobby $5,000 just to have a meeting with Bobby Fischer. And Arnfried Pagel said, "Bobby, I offer you $100,000 to play one game, and it's going to be an exhibition game. We're in the lowest league in Holland. You'll be playing almost a beginning player, so you'll have an easy time. I'll pay all your expenses, your travel, hotel, and $100,000." said Bobby. Very, very interesting. Will there be journalists? Bobby asked. Yes, said Arnfried, hoping that it will be a big promotion and all the papers in Holland will uh, cover, to report on the game. Will there be tickets? Ticket sales, says Bobby to Arnfried. Ticket sales? No, I mean, it's just two clubs playing against each other. There's no tickets. So there's no gate. People, there'll be spectators. Oh, yes, it's free, but there's no tickets. No, no, no. Will there be posters? Says Bobby Fischer. Posters? What's a poster? You know, a very big picture of me playing a game for the Königs Club. No, I don't think there'll be any posters. And so on. So this was how the conversation was going. And over the course of 1 to 2 to 3 days, Arnfried understood that Bobby was thinking that Arnfried was trying to make money from his participation in this chess club match. And that wasn't Arnfried's idea at all. He was just trying to promote his club and, have a big promotion. And Bobby was thinking, how is this guy going to make money more than $100,000? And so the conversation was going like this, like this, like this. And Arnfried began to understand that Bobby was not going to accept this very simple and easy uh, exhibition. He wasn't going to refuse. And that he would travel back to Holland empty handed, and he would even have no proof whatsoever that he even met with Bobby Fischer. So Pagal decided that he was going to hire a private investigator to take a photo of the two of them together so that he would have a keepsake as proof that, yeah, I really did. I met the guy. We had this conversation. So they agreed to meet in a park, Pagal and Bobby. And Pagal was on time, and there was no Bobby Fischer. Bobby was late, very, very late. And finally, he heard from the bushes, psst, 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 over here, over here. And Pagal looked into the bushes and said, Bobby, what are you doing there? He says, come on out. He says, no, you come on in. Pagal was like, what? So Pagal goes into this bushes and says, what are we doing? He said, there's a man, he's following me. And Pagal understood that Bobby realized there was a private investigator following him who wanted to take his picture with Pagal, and Pagal was responsible for Bobby being followed. I just thought that was hilarious. that, that he just wanted a picture with Bobby, and Bobby thought he was being followed. Okay. Ah, okay. So the question is that, Yasser, your very positive outlook about chess, and chess is boring. So how is it that you are enthusiastic about your teaching and your commentary and what you do? And in this case, Vanessa, I must say, I think I have the most wonderful job in the world. Why? First of all, I think chess is the coolest game. I mean, really, really, really great. And I get hired by chess organizers to get a front row seat and to teach other people what's going on in the chess game. So I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, pinch myself, because this is so cool. I get to follow a sport I love, to follow the best grandmasters in the world, and to speak about the game, and I get paid to do it. So I'm always wearing a smile because I'm thinking, these people don't understand. I would do this for free. I love it. And I must say, it's really a great pleasure for me to travel the world, speak to people like yourself. You're from Venezuela, but you're living in Argentina. And we immediately have a connection thanks to the fact that we both like chess. Okay, so the question is, will we be seeing a World Chess Championship match in St. Louis in the near future? I would like to say I can only hope so. For those of you who don't know, in 1886, the first World Championship was contested between Wilhelm Steinitz and Johann Zukertort. And it was held in America, but it was held in three cities. The match started in New York City with Zukertort having the lead. The match moved to St. Louis, Missouri, where Steinitz won the game, and Steinitz was leading before the third and final phase was played in New Orleans in 1886. Since that time, St. Louis has never hosted a world championship match. We expected that this year there was going to be a world championship match between Magnus Carlsen and the winner of the candidates tournament that was being played in March, and that the match was going to be held in Dubai for the World's Fair. Everything got canceled because of the pandemic, and the second half of the candidates match is still in waiting to be decided. Um, I know that the FIDE had Dubai in mind for this year's cycle, and maybe the World Championship match will again take place in Dubai later in 2021. But in terms of the near future and what we can expect, I can say no, that the percentage chance that St. Louis would host is low because so many cities around the world would be bidding and would like to be the host. But I can say this for sure, St. Louis would love, and I mean that, dearly love, to be the host of the World Championship match. And I can promise you would make a very good prize fund as well. What was the best game of my career? And again, so many, wow, so many games jump to my mind. Funnily enough, when people think of the best games of their career, they tend to think of the games that they won. In my case, I think the best game of my career was a game I played against Gary Kasparov in Skellefteå in Sweden during the GMA World Cup. And this was a game that was extraordinary. It was just, it ended in a draw. But what happened in this game, I had these feelings of absolute rapture as I knew I was going to win the game, to absolute horror as I realized the game was going to end up in a draw, to absolute distress when I realized I was completely lost. I played terrible. And I had completely mangled the opening, and I stood terribly worse against Gary after about 15 moves in a kind of a Benoni type position. And just in this moment, Gary played this howler, a move that's so bad, your cries of anguish can be heard in the next county. He played this move C5, C4, and I remember it vividly. he actually screwed the pawn into the surface of the chessboard. And this move was terrible. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, it didn't even rise to the level of 1. It was an awful move. So while he was screwing the pawn into the board, what was going through my mind is I wanted to get up, tiptoe around the table, and give him a kiss right here on the cheek to say thank you. And then to come back into my seat. But there was a problem, Vanessa. The Swedish organizers were recording this whole thing for television, and they had these huge cameras. I mean, I'm talking, you know, 500 kilo cameras, and there was a couple of them, and they were all zoomed in on the game. And I was thinking, I don't know how it would look at a professional chess tournament if one of the players kisses the other player. Like, I didn't even know if that was in the rule book. Like Section 8, chess players should not kiss each other during the game. Afterwards, I told Gary what I had intended to do, and he said, you should have done it. I deserved a kiss. That move was terrible. And I think we probably analyzed the game for about, I'm not kidding, 3 days, and still didn't come into any conclusions. It was a massively intriguing game. In my book, Chess Duels, which was a collection of all my games with the world champion, I I wax and wane for pages and pages about the positions and the possibilities, and I still find it a challenge to understand what was going on. I can hear it fine. The question is, have I met anyone who regretted not learning chess sooner or younger? And I think the answer to that question is I have yet to meet a person who didn't have the feeling that, oh, I should have learned chess younger. This was never so clear as with Viktor Korchny. Viktor Korchny twice officially played for the World Championship against Anatoly Karpov. And in his candidates match in 1974, the finals, the winner would go on to play Bobby Fischer. Bobby Fischer forfeited that match so that Karpov, when he defeated Korchnoi in the finals of the candidates, it was really like a world championship. So we could almost say that Viktor Korchnoi failed 3 times to win the world championship match. And in his case, he was incredibly late. I believe he was 14 years old, something like that, when he learned chess. And you think to yourself, my goodness, if he had started younger, how much better Viktor Korchnoi might have been. And I think today a lot of people feel like 6, 7, and 8 years old is the right age to begin. In my case, I started very late. I started at 12. So I think a lot of grandmasters and a lot of the top players that I have met regret that they didn't learn the game earlier. But then again, the circumstances in my life would just not have allowed chess to enter except for the time when it did.
Okay, okay, we have another one, and I think that this question will be difficult to answer for you.
A difficult question.
Yeah.
Okay, Vanessa, shoot it.
Who is your favorite chess player?
Who is my favorite chess player? Actually, that's a really easy question for me. Yeah, I admire a lot of chess players, but my favorite by far was Bent Larson. Bent Larson was a giant at the chessboard. And he had a no prisoners attitude at all times. And I remember this one very moment very clearly. I was playing in an open tournament in Argentina, just at a place outside of Buenos Aires, a place called Morón. And they had an open. And at the time, it was the time of the junta, so that the prize fund was really high. And I was a half a point behind Bent Larson going into the last round game. And I was also a half a point behind Ulf Anderson. Those two players led the tournament and they would play each other in the final round. So I wanted Ulf Anderson and Bent Larson to make a draw. And then I wanted to win against my opponent, Grandmaster Daniel Campora, a Grandmaster of Argentina. And then I could tie for the first. And again, the prize fund was very, very good, $30,000, which in 1980 was a lot of money. And they had very good prizes. So there I was playing my game with Daniel, and I was also keeping an eye on board one of the match between Ulf and Bent Larson. And Ulf Anderson, at this precise moment, was the number 3 player in the world behind Karpov and Korchny. And Ulf is white, knight f3, g3, bishop g2, castle c4, playing very accurate and quiet and modest moves. Had a nice position as white in English, I have to say, doesn't matter, 15, 16 moves. And Ulf plays the best move in the position and says, I offer a draw. Now, I, of course, wanted to reach across the board, have them both shake hands together. And instantly, even before the question was even out of Ulf's mouth, Ben said, no. I play for a win with black. And it was like, oh. Unfortunately for me, I did win my game against Daniel. And like 6 hours later, that game was a draw. But I just want to emphasize that Bent Larson was an absolute fighter at the board. And he inspired people like me and generations of players. So for me, Bent Larson was fantastic.
Okay, I was thinking that that was hard for you to answer. But well, I have another one from Sujit. He said, who do you think? Oh no, sorry, I have another one. That was the question. What was it like working with Korchny?
The question is, what was it like working with Viktor Korchny? And for me, this was a spectacular, fantastic opportunity. Viktor Korchny was the number 2 player in the world. I was 20 years old. And he had come to me and he said, Yasser, would you like to be my trainer? And I was so stunned by the question, I couldn't understand it. This was ridiculous. This is the great Viktor Korchny asking me, a young 20-year-old kid, to teach him chess. What on earth could I possibly teach Viktor? And I was stunned into complete silence. I didn't understand the question. But what was going through my mind was, could I afford it? How much would it cost me to pay the number 2 player in the world to study chess together? How much would it cost me and could I afford it? Those were the questions going through my mind when Viktor misunderstood my silence. He said, oh, I'm sorry. I pay all your expenses, your travel, your hotel, your meals, your laundry, and I will pay you 500 Swiss francs a week. I was shocked. I suddenly realized he was going to pay me to work with him, I put out my hand. I couldn't speak. I was so happy, excited. And it was a very funny experience because at that time, even though I was really, really young and super strong, I was very athletic. Victor had an appetite for work that drained me. I mean, he worked hard on chess 10, 12, 14 hours. And you do that 20 days in a row and you're not used to anything more than 3 or 4 hours of study. I assure you, your brain hurts. And I got a lot of sleep working with Viktor Korchny. I'd go to the bed and just collapse until, he woke me up and said, okay, let's go. Where were we? And it was just a fantastic time. And I remember my chess exploded, like just my rating went through the roof. And we would play against each other really hard, this training and lots of blitz. And I remember after one particular training session, I had gone to the Costa del Sol in Spain, not Torremolinos, Malaga, Spain. I was invited to this very, very nice tournament in Spain, a round robin, single round robin tournament. And I had these grandmaster opponents. And I looked across the table and I didn't see Viktor Korchnoi. And I said, you're not Viktor Korchnoi. All I've been doing is bashing my head against Viktor Korchnoi, the number 2 player in the world, for the last 3 months. I'm going to kill you. And I had a wonderful result in that tournament. But it was like Viktor Korchnoi was a force of nature. And it was really a great honor and a pleasure that I could work with him for the entirety of the whole candidates matches. Those were 3 matches, and as well as the world championship match in Murano, Italy. And I really like to throw out a big um, thanks also to Michael Steen, who was also on the team, and Grandmaster Lep Gutmann as well. The 3 of us worked really, really hard together, and it was just a marvelous experience.
Okay, we we are close right now of the end of this show,
Okay.
and I have another question. They say, dear Jesser, there are many talent unrated players on chess websites. Are you aware of a hidden super talent?
Okay, so the question is, on the many websites, game servers, there are a lot of really, really, really talented uh, juniors and talented kids playing. And am I aware of that? Yes, I am. And I think of Andrew Tang as really, really a phenom, and the young Grandmaster Nihal from India. I see those players playing, and I think, okay, these guys are going to be world uh, top players. So yes, and I just think that the chess engines, the game servers, are so fantastic. When I started playing chess, again, I was 12, 13, 14, people really didn't want to play me. They did not want to play me because it was like they didn't want to win and disappoint me. And they really didn't want to lose to, and then everybody would tease them that they lost to such a young player. But today, thanks to the game servers, thanks to an engine, you can have an opponent 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you can hide behind a handle and nobody knows who you are. So, yeah, uh, I think it's just fantastic, the tools that are out there. Okay.
This is our last question, and the last question is: who do you think will be the next world champion?
Well, the question is, who do I think will be the next world champion? And the truth of the matter is, if I knew, I would go immediately to the betting sites and make millions of dollars. And the reality is, I don't. I don't know. Uh, I hoped that it would be an American, whether it be Fabiano, Wesley, or Hikaru. I'm always cheering for them, so I'm very proud of their successes. But in truth, the world of chess is very tumultuous, especially right now, and incredibly competitive. I think, though, that Magnus Carlsen is somebody remarkable, really a phenom. Um, and he's very, very focused and he's playing awesomely well. It's quite possible that the future world champion is going to be somebody who is, I'm going to say, 10 years younger than he is. It might be Ali Riza Faruja. It might be Nihal or an Indian junior player. But at this moment, it's really, really hard for me to see Magnus losing his title in the next two cycles. In other words, I think he's a favorite to retain his title for two more world championship match cycles. But after that, maybe.
Thank you, Yasser, for being here, for make all this
Thank you,
answer
Vanessa.
and all the amazing story that you told in all the show. And if you wanna say goodbye to everybody right now on the chat, the people was very exhausting for make questions.
Lovely. Well, indeed. Thank you so much for inviting me, Vanessa. It's been my pleasure to be with you. Thank you for being a wonderful hostess. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on the Chess 24 and being a part of the community and being a member, supporting Chess 24. It was great. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you all again. Bye bye for now.